to stamp along with Rubbernecker. This is Preeti. Today I have a really fun fall thank you project, and I'm going to use these Ken Oliver watercolor inks, and I'm also going to use them as a stamp pad. So what I'm showing you here is a felt piece that you would require to for this particular project. Now I'm going to use a white felt only because the colors are so much more easier to see on the video, and that's the reason why I chose to use the white felt. And I'm also using that ink not dauber, like a blending tool to put my felt on it. You don't really need it. I had it in my stash, so I'm just using it for that reason. And I'm also going to use the stamps that I showed you earlier. There's some leafy stamps, and I'm going to use the paper. I'm going to use is Bristol Smooth paper. You could also use watercolor paper. I happen to have some Bristol Smooth at home, so I'm just using Bristol Smooth for this project. So what I'm doing, I'm just choosing a couple of fall colors. So I've chosen some reds and yellows and oranges, and even a few greens and some and I think I've used a brown too, but I'm not too sure though. But anyway, so the very fall colors is what I chose, and I'm just going to ink this felt with different shades of oranges and yellows to create my ink pad. And then I'm going to just daub this ink right over the stamp, just like that. Now, because I've already added multiple colors on the surface, the ink is going to blend and create multiple tones of colors as I go to stamp with this particular image. And then I'm just going to keep repeating that until I like the way the composition of the stamp or the card comes to be. So my goal for this particular card is I want the kind of the foliage to burst out from the corner. So I'm just layering those fall leaves mainly towards the edge of the cardstock. Now I'm doing the same thing with some yellows and some green tones as well. Again, I've used multiple colors, and I'm going to daub that over my stamp, and I'm just going to press that stamp onto the paper. Now also I wanted, you could add some water if you want from a distance onto the felt if you think the ink is drying up. Now I've finished stamping, and I'm using this die. This is the jack-o'-lantern die, and I'm choosing two pumpkins from this die set, and those are the the stalks of the pumpkin, and I'm just going to adhere the stalks over both of this pumpkin, and I'm going to color this pumpkin. I want to add a bit of depth onto this pumpkin. Now these pumpkins are mainly made to look more cartoonish, so I wanted to make it look more realistic. So you can easily change you can easily change images in the way you like it just by adding a little color. So all I'm doing is I'm adding some E42, 41 and 40 to create almost like a white pumpkin, and giving it some shading, and also trying to create those indentations into the pumpkin, just to give it that 3D effect. And you can see how that very flat basic white die cut now has a character to it, or it almost looks like a little real pumpkin. And then I'm also adding some E74 and 72 the stock, and there you go. I went ahead and finished coloring 3 pumpkins. Sorry. And then I'm using this sentiment thank you from this particular stamp set. Now I'm going to stamp this sentiment in 2 different colors. So the U I'm going to stamp with an orange color from the Color Fuse inks, and then you'll see I tried to use the thank you stamp, and I somehow feel like it's not cutting out for this particular composition of the card. So I fiddle around with it for a little while until I decide, okay, this is not working. I'm going to change it to another sentiment. So instead of thank you, now it says thank you for being you, or thanks for being you. And I kind of like that much better for this particular card. And then all I'm going to do is place this pumpkin here, which I will adhere later onto this corner. And then I went, and obviously I adhered the pumpkins with some foam adhesive, and then I also cut that cardstock down a bit and adhered it to a top folding note card, and that's the finished card. For the second card, again, I'm going to start off with a Bristol Smooth paper. This card was probably my favorite card. Let me know in the comment box below which of these cards were your favorite, if you really liked creating this DIY stamp ink pad. Anyway, so I'm starting off with this Thanksgiving word, like a poem sentiment, and I'm going to stamp this onto that Bristol Smooth cardstock using a grey, really light grey color fuse ink. And after I'm done with that, I'm just going to trace a circle just with a pencil to mark, like to draw a circle, because I'm going to create a wreath over it, and I just wanted a guide as to where to stamp my element. So I'm just tracing it with a very, very light pencil. And once I'm done with that, I've gone ahead and chosen another leaf image. And this one, okay, that stamp set is called the Branch Set 1. So again, I've gone ahead and chosen one of those images, and I'm going to stamp this using some green shade. So now I've chosen this phthalo, I think it's called phthalo ink, which when I dabbed it, it kind of looked very blue-green. I wanted it to be a bit more on a like a greener, rather than having that blue tint to it, aqua tint to it, and I added some yellow to it, and I kind of liked that shade better. But as I stamp, I'll make sure that a little bit of the phthalo green is also visible, so it's not all green, like bright green. And I'm going to follow along the circle that I drew, and I'm going to just stamp this leafy branch until it's completely like I've finished making the wreath. And I really liked how this did. It almost looks like, you know, those prints that you get, watercolor prints, and I kind of had that feeling to this. And I'm using this. This is a deco foil glue. You actually can use any kind of liquid glue for this. It don't really need this deco foil glue. I just happen to have this, so I'm using it. So I want to add a little bit of foiling to my image. So I've just taken this brush. It's a yucky brush that I use for all these kind of stuff. I'm going to dip it into that glue that I just put on that paper, and I'm going to add that glue wherever there are tiny, so there are tiny berries on this branch, and I'm just adding it right in those places. And then I'm just going to heat set it a bit. You don't want to heat set it a lot, just a little bit until it's tacky. The glue has to be tacky. And here you can see I'm making a mistake of adding the foil. You never put the gold side down. You want to put the non-gold side down in order for the foil to stick onto the glue. So you can see here, I'm just going to keep dabbing this gold foil all over the wreath, and wherever I've added the glue, it's going to adhere. And I really like the blue and that gold and the grey background. I just was loving this card, seriously. So I'm taking that stamp, that sentiment stamp again, and I'm just going to stamp Happy Thanksgiving, which is right on top of that long poem sentiment stamp. And I'm going to add what you call washi tape underneath the word Happy Thanksgiving, because as I use my ink pad, my embossing ink pad, I don't want the ink to get onto any other place other than just that Happy Thanksgiving. So after I'm done stamping it, I went ahead and embossed it with white embossing pot. And here I've taken a 5x7 note card in a shimmery silver. It almost looks like the gray color that I used for that stamp. So I kind of chose that shimmery cardstock for this, 5x7 cardstock for this, and then I just adhered this panel onto that note card, and then it was just time to add the sentiment to the bottom of the wreath, not really underneath the wreath, but to the bottom part of the wreath, with a little bit of wreath peeking through it. And here you can see the finished look of that card. Moving on for our last and final card, I am just going to mask off the top edge of this note card. I didn't really need to turn it. I could have adhered it to the bottom, but anyway. So it's just the top edge of the note card, about 2 inches. That post-it tape that I'm using is 1 inch wide, so I've used 2 of them. So that gives me a 2-inch masked off portion of that note card. And then I'm going to take another one of those stamps from the same stamp set, and I'm going to again use my DIY ink pad, which I have made using the felt, and I'm going to stamp that all over the unmasked place of this cardstock. I do want to let you know, so these cards, I wanted something really simple and easy and quick. These cards I'm showing thank you, but I made more of these cards, and I've added Happy Thanksgiving, and these are going to, there is a senior center here where there are a lot of senior people who are not going to go to families this Thanksgiving because of the COVID situation, and they're going to miss out their families and friends. So these cards are actually going to them to say that that they're being taught about, and just wishing them a happy Thanksgiving. So my girls and I would be going over this next weekend and handing over these cards over to the senior center. And then I'm again doing the same thing using the deco pen and not deco pen, what is a foil pen, and adding some gold foils in between the open spaces. I'm going to add the thanks. I've taken this thanks sentiment, and I've just embossed it onto a black cardstock with some white embossing powder, and I'm just going to trim it into the size that I want it, and I'm just going to adhere it right at the cross section of the mask place and the stamped place. And I've taken this designer paper, which is a beautiful plaid designer paper, and I'm just going to add this onto that. Now I did go ahead and not die cut, actually cut that stamped panel down a little smaller so that I have that border of the designer paper on the top folding white note card, and that pretty much completed that card. And here is a look of all the 3 cards we created today, and I really hope you enjoyed this video and you give this DIY felt ink pad a go. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and like this video and subscribe to our channel. And you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.